Hey, guys. My name is Paula Sun, but you can call me the Change Navigator. I mean, that's why you clicked on the podcast because of the name, right? All right, cool. Well, I want to begin by saying welcome to my new listeners and welcome back to the Faithful Navigators. We are here in season 2, and I told you guys we will be talking to ordinary people who are doing extraordinary things. And today I have a very, very special guest. Her name is Kimberly Timms. Kim is a true girl of the South Side, born and raised in Chicago like former floaters Michelle Obama. Kim is a mother of a young adult, and she does not allow her zip code or circumstances to dictate her future. Despite becoming a teen mom at the age of 17, she was motivated to overcome the adversities of a teen mom. Kim is a creative problem solver, a connector, a motivator, and a trusted resource. She's a lifelong learner who courageously lives out her life and loves authentically. Kim maintains an active lifestyle, networking, and flexing her love language, which is quality time with her family and friends. In her free time, you will find Kim doing all things she loves and enjoys, like reading, dancing, traveling, partaking in golf lessons, curating playlists, or volunteering. Kim is a lover of smoothie bowls, snacks, and naps,
Nap.
guys. Welcome, Kim.
Thank you, Paula. I appreciate you having me on. I am very, very honored when you send me the note like, "Hey, I want to have you on the podcast." I'm like, "Little old me." So, really, thank you for opening up your platform, and secondly, I'm very proud of you for even starting this. I know we talked about pivot earlier this year, and so when you started the podcast, I was very happy. You have an amazing voice, and you're very influential. So this was the perfect platform.
Well, thank you, Kim. Thank you for your kind words. Guys, if you don't know, well, you don't know, so I'll tell you this. Kim, I reached out to Kim so many times to get information about a podcast. She told me different things. She even told me what kind of microphone to get. Kim was my source for starting this podcast. But let me all give you a little story. We moved here back in 2013. We moved to Allen, Texas in 2013. And I met Kim through, I guess, our daughters being at the same school.
I think we also met through a mutual friend at the time.
True, we did meet through a mutual friend at the time, but our
Right.
daughters were at the same middle school,
That's true.
same age.
Yes.
Her daughter was the basketball manager for the
Yes.
team, and my
And
daughter
Jasmine
played
was a player.
basketball.
Yes.
So Kim and I go back at least 7 years. Like I said, she's from Chi Town, and Kim is super, super fun. Listen, Kim was the one who got me to going to dance aerobics. Kim has so much energy, but she has so much energy, but guess what? She loves naps. She,
Love.
she
Well,
lives by it. She looks forward to taking naps.
I scheduled them.
She schedules her naps. So, like I said, Kim and I go back at least 7 years, and I'm just grateful that she took out the time to talk to us on today. So, Kim, I want you to tell us a little bit about your professional career, your background, not where you are now, but your background.
Absolutely. So, I started. Oh wow! When you say 7 years and you put that all into perspective, you're like, wow, time flies.
Mhm.
So, I started off in Chicago. So before I relocated to Texas, graduated school, I became pregnant. I wanted to go off to PV, and I got fearful and just was like, okay, well, I'm staying in Chicago and just go to school here locally. Started going to school, was looking for a job, started off working like at our local park district as a camp counselor. So that's probably where that fun piece comes.
Okay.
The kids loved me. And so after that, having my daughter and having to deal with kids, I was like, oh, this is not for me because I thought I wanted to be a teacher. And so I was like, this is the perfect way to test out if this is something I really want to do. That wasn't my ministry. And so I joined school. I enrolled in school, like a local school downtown, and met a guy, just a mutual friend, and he was telling me, "Oh, Blue Cross Blue Shield is hiring. You should join." And I was like, "Okay, well, here, give him my resume and put me on." He gave my resume. They called me. I had an interview. I started off as a temporary employee, even changing my schedule so that I could work there during the day
Mhm.
and go to school at night. Started there at the lowest level. Eventually, after working maybe 2.5 years as a temp, they finally converted me to a full time. I was the lowest level job that they had at the company, and they called it was a union job. So after that, I just did the best that I could in that role. And it was a black lady who obviously saw something in me and she pretty much molded me. And then I kind of just grew in the company. And I was at the Chicago location for about 6 or 7 years. I got promoted like 2 or 3 times after that. And I made a bold ask. No bad ask that no one had probably ever asked before. And one of the managers took like us
Hold up,
out.
hold up. You said a bold ask.
A bold ask.
Okay, all
So
right.
I was invited to lunch by a leader, and it was only like maybe three of us at the table. And he just went around the round table, was like, "How's everything going?" And then the last question was, what can I do for you?" And I was like, We had just merged with Texas. And I always wanted to live in Texas. And my way to Texas was going to be PV. I was like,
Mhm,
I'm getting out of Chicago and I'm going to Texas because all of my family originate either from Louisiana or Texas.
mhm,
So traveling here during the summers, I'm like, they live nice down here. So going back to that story, I made that bold ask when he said, "Hey, is there anything I can do for you?" And I was like, "Well, yes, there is." And mind you, I might have been 23, 24 at the time.
mhm,
And I said, "I want to move to Texas." I was like, "Can I transfer?" He was like, "Let me get back to you on that." He was like, "Wow, what's prompting this?" Broke it down to him because I was getting ready to graduate from college. And he came back the next day and he was like, "Kim, we'd rather you relocate than to lose you altogether."
mm,
And I was not expecting that, yes, but I just was like, I have to make this ask.
mhm,
And I came home and he was like, "Well, when do you want to leave?" And I'm like, "Oh, I didn't even think about that part." I was like, "Let me get back to you." And so I was like, "Well, how soon? What's the time frame? Like, what time? What's the time frame that you would give me?" He was like, "A couple of few months." And I was like, "Okay, give me 6 months." And so, literally after that, I booked a flight to Dallas like every week, and I had to pay for it on my own. So
mhm,
I was all this time I was saving money, putting money to the side, not really knowing that this was going to happen. Because even before moving to Texas, I tried to buy a house in Chicago and it just didn't work. It
mhm,
just fell through. And I was like, dang, it must not be meant for me to stay here.
mhm,
And all of my friends were buying homes. And I was like, huh. Then that Texas again just came back up.
mhm,
So book flights every weekend to come and look at homes. And I moved here within like 6 months of that ask.
mm. That's pretty bold. Just asking. And what's crazy is when people ask you a question, you have to give them an answer. And in that moment, you didn't give them what they wanted to hear. You didn't give them what you think sounded good. You asked for what you wanted, and here we are. So take us a little bit further into your career at
Yes.
BCS.
So then relocated here. So one of the things I can say about being in Chicago in that city life, I felt like I progressed more. I
Mm,
got to Texas and I just was not progressing. So I
mm,
was able to stay in that same department. But little did I know that that was just a setup for where I'm at today. And being in a role, I ended up becoming a project manager because I went to school to be a developer, to do coding, realized I did not like that. And then I ended up falling into a role of project management. And
mhm,
I was like, okay, I know the terminology. I can speak to it. I can make people feel good and get things done,
mhm,
not realizing that's project management.
mm,
So for 10 years, I was in that department. But I did end up progressing. I got like three promotions within those 10 years in that
mhm,
department. And I was able to really learn so much about the business because as a project manager, you're never on the same project. You rarely ever work with the same people. So every year I was pretty much transitioning, or what you would say is pivoting. I mean, I would pivot literally into a different project every year. And what I liked about that is change.
Hmm.
And I know a lot of people don't like change, but I do.
Okay.
And so I like the fact that I didn't have to work with my colleagues, that in terms of who I was in the same department with, I was actually matrix working with other areas.
Hmm.
And because of that, and just being at Blue Cross for so long, I met a ton of people. So when people would say, "Hey, you know Kim Tim's over at Blue Cross," they knew me, and it wasn't because of a bad rep. It was because I worked on several different projects and I volunteered.
Hmm.
So after becoming a project manager, we acquired this technology called Salesforce.
Hmm.
And I actually got that job because of a previous project that I worked on. And they came to me and said, "Hey, we think you would be great for the role." And I had to interview for it and got the role. So I worked at Blue Cross another what 9 or so years, and here I am, decided to make a pivot after 19 years.
All right, that's where we are going. So you said something. You said, I like change. What is it about change that you like that gets you going?
I think for me, the change is challenge. I don't always like doing the same things, right? You talked about me being fun. I might dance one day, I might be namasteing the next. I never like doing the same thing continuously, because for me, if I'm changing, I'm growing.
Hmm.
If I'm staying the same, I'm not growing and I'm not expanding my knowledge.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I definitely will say it's the growth.
Hmm.
And I always like to be one step ahead. Like I like to be that person when they say, "Oh, I'm gonna call Kim Tim's." Kim Tim's will know, or if I don't know, I know who to send you
Hmm.
to get the information.
Yeah, guys, Kim is a great resource for anything. Kim knows a lot of people. If you're out in public with her, you're almost bound for somebody to say, "Hey, I know her. That's Kim Timms." That's right. That's who it is. We are interviewing Kim Timms on today, and Kim, I want you to tell the navigators what happened. Okay, so a lot of people get to a certain point in life and they're like, "Okay, I'm tired of doing this, but I'm scared. I've been in this job for 10, 15 years, and I know I want to do something else, but I'm scared because I appreciate this stability." How in the world did you leave a job, a career after being there for 19 years and pivot into something different? What went through your mind? What was your process? Tell us about it.
Wow. So I had fears, right? I'd always told myself when my daughter graduates, I'm gonna take that pivot. And I had people tell me all the time, "Kim, why are you still here? You can go somewhere else and make more money." And I was like, "No, this is more stability," just because of what generation of, for like my parents, they
Mm-hmm.
tell you, you don't need to be changing jobs, just stick to one job. And so in my head, I'm like, okay, well, I'm a single mother and this is stability, and at the end of the day, they were good to me. So before I made this pivot, many thoughts went through my head. I had thoughts of imposter syndrome, like, "You're not good enough. You don't have the skill set." Even though in the back of my head, I know, "Kim, you are resourceful." But once you become complacent, sometimes you can get in a season or a cycle of being stuck.
Mm-hmm.
And I literally, for a year, just really asked God to direct my path. One of my favorite verses is Proverbs 3, 4, 5, and 6. And I just asked him and I just prayed about the fear, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
I just started making small little bold movements, right? So I started networking. And so I was like, okay, well, if I network, that'll build up my strength,
Mm-hmm.
right? Just in a professional atmosphere. Because think about it, after 19 years, I never interviewed for a job externally to Blue Cross.
Mm.
So I didn't know how to interview unless it was internal, and it was easy because I knew most of the people I would interview with. So I had fears of not being qualified. I had fears of interviewing, despite, I feel like I'm great at interviewing. It's just that it was just that fear.
Mm-hmm.
And I just one day walked into work and I was like, "God, I can't keep doing this." I just knew it was my time to go. and Blue Cross started laying off. And I was like, whoa, like 25% of leadership were let go. I'm like, this could be me.
Mhm.
And I'm like, and it hit home. My boss got let go. And I was
Mm.
like, they might come for me next. So I started practicing my walkout at work. And I packed my bags. My colleagues was like, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm practicing walking out." I said, "I want to walk out here with my head, my head high held, my head held high." And I was like, "Kim, you are crazy." And I was like, "What are you afraid of, Kim?" Because I wanted to make it to that 20. It was something about making it to the 20.
Mhm.
And someone says, "Well, what does it matter if you make it to 20 or 19?" And I'm like, I don't know. It's not it there is nothing. And so one day I channeled my energy because again, they let my boss go.
Mhm.
I got a new boss. So every day or every week there was always something with her and I said, you know what? I'm gonna rechannel this energy. So instead of getting upset with her, I'm just gonna apply for a job. So meanwhile, we're on a staff call. She's pissing me off, and I'm only then applying for a job. So I
Hold up.
applied
Was
for a
this
job.
during the pandemic or was it
Ye-
before?
It was literally like 2 or 3 weeks before the pandemic.
Okay. Wow.
So I'm applying for these jobs, right?
Mhm.
And I want to say it was actually in February. It was on
Okay.
Valentine's Day. I said, Kim, as a way to show that you love yourself, apply for another job because this is not for you.
Hold up, hold up, hold up. Do you hear this, navigators? You don't have to sit in a place and be so frustrated and beat down and have so much negative energy. By the time you get home, you're good for nothing. She told herself, Kim, if you love yourself, apply for another job.
Yep.
That's
And I,
that's that's pretty good. Thanks,
you're
Kim.
right. And you bring up a good point, Paula, because I was beat down. Like it wasn't that I didn't enjoy what I was doing. I didn't necessarily I had outgrown the role and I had outgrown the company. And you have to recognize when you've outgrown a relationship,
Mm.
a job, and or people. And I realized that I felt like I was one of the smartest people on the team, but I'm like, well, who can I learn and glean from if I'm the smartest one in the room?
Mm. That's good.
So I there were several factors in me making that pivot, and that was just a few. And I will tell you the one of the number one factors is my boss rated me as average, and I knew I busted my butt.
Mm.
And I said my average is excellence, and I know darn well I was not average this year.
Had you received average any other time?
No,
Wow. Okay.
nope. And I always got excellent ratings. I always received kudos from people external to my team as well as on my team. So I was a bit frustrated. And I was like, I'm not going to continue to sit in a place where you don't see my value. I can't make you see my value.
Mhm.
So I need to pivot.
Whew, do you guys hear that? And I want to just add something to that. Like you said, sometimes we stay in relationships longer than we have to, dealing with stuff. And for me, I can just be very honest and transparent. Whenever it's time for me to transition to another job, it's always preceded by frustration.
Yep.
Frustration is usually what pushes me out of one place into another place. Frustration. When I start feeling that frustration, I'm like, oh, it's time to go. It's time to go. All right, go
I
ahead, Kim.
agree.
I'm sorry.
No, I agree. And you don't, I think as Black women too, we don't want to give up. But sometimes you just have to give up and go.
Mhm.
And at that point, it was time. So on Valentine's Day, I started applying for just different jobs. I was intentional about what I applied for because I knew what I wanted and where I wanted to go. So I was strategic as well. And I was like, I'm not just going to apply for anything and it has to be worth my while. Not just financially, but culturally. Like it needs
Mhm.
to be a great cultural fit because I don't want to. I know this place and I know how to navigate Blue Cross Blue Shield,
Mhm.
but navigating somewhere else where I'm not sure of the culture is a big factor in me saying yes to the job or no to the job.
So how can you find out about the culture if you're not in the culture?
So I'm big, as you talked about, resource, right? Resource and research is my thing. I have resources all over the Metroplex and on my LinkedIn. And I was actually exposed to this company just by going to like conferences and connected to a lot of their employees. And I followed them. Like, I not just followed, I stalked this company,
Mhm,
like literally stalked them.
mhm,
And I mean, I know we have social media. Look at their LinkedIn. Look, I actually went to glassdoor.com to review like what were some of the employees saying, what were some of the employee reviews.
mm,
I'm just telling you,
mhm.
research and leverage your resources. So
Okay.
I actually interviewed a couple of individuals who worked at the company to say, hey, how do you like it? Probably about five.
Nice. That's some good tips for the listeners if they're thinking about transitioning to another job and how you can find out about the culture before getting into the culture. Okay, go
Absolutely. So after that, few weeks hit, right? It was the pandemic.
ahead. Hmm.
So we were all positioned to start working from home, which I absolutely love.
Hmm.
And so I got a call the week of the pandemic. Like, hey, we got your resume and we want to talk to you about this role literally the next day. And so I said, okay. Now, mind you, I really didn't know which role it was because I applied to about 4 jobs at this company,
Hmm.
but I stay ready. So I kept a log of what I interviewed. So I was like, okay. So he said, this is for this particular role. It was a role with the company, but they had acquired another company. So it was for that company that they acquired.
Hmm.
That part I didn't know because I was so eager to apply that I didn't pay attention. So the recruiter calls and was like, hey, can you kind of share with us, why you apply for the role? I literally had to just kind of on the fly tell him why. He's like, did you realize this was from MuleSoft? And I was like, honestly, I didn't. He was like, do you know what they do? Honestly, I do not. Right. And I think that honesty and being authentic
Hmm.
will take you a long way. And I think I just made a very good rapport with the recruiter.
Hmm.
He said, I'm going to pass you on to the hiring manager.
Mm.
And I also would say the key is when I talked about having resources and research, have a referral too, because I actually was able to tap into one of my resources to use as a referral.
Mm.
And having that referral, I believed helped me at least get my interview.
So you mean a referral at the company that you want to go to?
Yes.
Okay, great, great. So now, can you tell us you were at a career for 19 years, a certain career, and then you pivoted to something? I think this is something totally different from what you were doing. Am I correct? Or is it
The
close?
company, I would say the industry is totally different.
Mm-hmm.
I was in insurance and
Okay.
now I work for a tech, but now it's similar. It's actually similar because ended up leaving as a consultant
Mm-hmm.
and now I'm a strategic program manager.
Mm.
So it's not totally different,
Mm-hmm.
but the industry is absolutely different.
Got you. Okay. Well, kudos to you, Kim, for making that bold move, that daring move, and just being willing to change and to put in the work. Guys, we have to be willing to put in the work if we want to see different results. I know we can all get to a point where we are frustrated and we find ourselves complaining, but if you're not careful, you will be complaining and stuck in the same situation. So you have to be willing to put in the work to see different results. So, again, guys, we are interviewing Kim Thames on today. Kim, I know you to be a fun person, right? And if anybody didn't know you and they saw you out in public, you can be mistaken for an extrovert.
I can. And I was gonna tell you that like when I'm not acting introvertish, right? And I think a lot of people they think until they get to truly know me that okay, wow, she really isn't an extrovert.
Mm-hmm.
I know how to turn it on and off. I think I'm a balance of both, and they call that the ambivert, and
Mm.
that's what I establish myself as, or that's what I consider myself as the ambivert. So yeah, I love to have fun, but I love to rest.
Mm-hmm. I get it. And like I said, I've come to learn that about you probably within the last 2 years. Yeah.
Really.
Yes. Guys, I have to get on Kim's calendar in order for us to do something. I mean, Kim's calendar stays full. So I have to say, hey, Kim, next month on a Thursday, can we do this?
Well,
Kim,
listen,
Kim's calendar stays full, guys.
booked and busy is what they call it. But I'm gonna tell you, Paula, this pandemic has been a blessing to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's made me stop and slow down, and kind of going back to what you said about putting in the work and doing the work.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Even like with my daughter right now, she's kind of going through the process of looking for an internship. And I'm like, you have to do the work. Like, don't just go apply for that job. Go study that job. Go
Mm-hmm.
look at the job description and then figure out where your gaps are and figure out how you're going to fill those gaps. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What are your opportunities and your threats? Do a SWOT analysis.
Mm.
I'm like, so you just downloaded the application, filled it out, and that's it? No, you need to get an interview kit. I
Mm.
said, and you need to build your kit on how you're going to interview, because I think a lot of times we just assume and we do not prepare for the role. And
Mm.
I literally went through a whole entire end to end preparation.
I love it. I love it. That is so good to pour into your daughter and be able to prepare her for the real world. The real world. Kim, I want to ask you something. You keep saying this word bold. You've said it several times during the podcast. Okay. And guys, I want to let you all know that Kim is a co host of her own podcast. The
Yes.
podcast is called Bold Black Girls Podcast. Tell the listeners a little bit about the podcast and why the name.
Okay. Very, very good question. So, yes, I am the co host along with my co host, Aries Webb Williams. We met in the gym, and we just hit it off. And she was going through a divorce at the time, and I was actually going through a breakup as well. And I think that just kind of was one of the ways that connected us. And then we started learning about this term called networking, because again, I didn't really know what networking was or is. And so we started going to these events, what we thought was networking. No, that was a social hour. And we realized, okay, a true networking event is probably something that you probably, in terms of what you do day to day in your job. And so we started attending these tech networking events, and that transpired into us joining this organization called the Dallas ATW, which is Alliance for Technology and Women, and they host these monthly networking events. And so, like, when people are out of a job and when you go to these networking events, they will ask who is in transition and who are the recruiters. So you have direct access to say, hey, you know what? I am in transition. What type of roles are you all looking for? And I have actually known 3 people to secure jobs just through networking at that event.
Wow.
So then I started saying, okay, well, I need to start networking other places. So it kind of goes back to the calendar. It was really networking that I was doing, right? But this networking is something too where it allowed me to grow and learn. So I started going to networking events for UX. Now I'm not doing a job in UX. So, but I was like, you know what? Let me start going to these networking events. They got good cheese and wine and, some employee brothers. So I just said, let me start going to these networking events. So we go to the networking events. Fast forward, in that ATW, they hosted a tech conference, and they said, hey, we want to put on a panel for Black women in tech, because that's something that we really don't see or talk about. And I'll say Aries actually made the bold request to
Mhm.
have a panel interview. So we did that at this tech conference that's pretty much 99% white, and we had this panel. So her and I kind of worked together. She was the actual host, and I was like the background person. So we put it together. Afterwards, everyone was so excited. They was like, "This is awesome. We need more." And we're like, "Need more? What could we do?" And then we figured, let's start a podcast as the platform to pretty much talk about that, where we build, organize, and pretty much provide content where we can help other women make bold requests, both personally, not just professionally, but personally as well. Because a lot of times as Black women, um, I can't say now though, I'm so proud of Black women and how we have evolved, where we are asking for what we want, right?
Mhm.
And I just think that this platform is why we created this platform for women to inspire them to make a bold to be bold in their walk, be it personally or professional. And so we've been doing this for about a year or so, and then the pandemic hit. So we're trying to stay consistent with it because, as you know, with the podcast, it can definitely be a challenge. But we want to inspire other Black women and other women who want to be allies for Black women. We need allies as well.
Mm, that's good. We need allies for other Black women. Kim, you have shared so much information. You've dropped so much knowledge with us today, especially as it relates to career, networking, being bold in the ask. So I thank you for sharing all of that with the listeners. Before we go, could you tell the listeners what is the message, like from the core of your being, that you want to leave with them?
Two things: do it anyway, even if you're scared. Just do it. I always tell my daughter, like Nike, just do it. Even in that fear, because I think a lot of times we let fear hold us back. Have faith in that as well, right? Because I had to rechannel that fear into faith.
Mm,
And once I channeled that into faith, it just happened, right? What Kiera Sheard says is happening.
it keeps happening
Um,
for me.
and then
Mhm.
last but not least, I can't not say be bold. Don't be afraid. I mean, I boldly ask for free things all the time. Like I remember at the airport, I was running late and I'm going through TSA, and my friends they were ahead of me, and it was like, "You need to get here because it's really late." I mean, it's a really long line, and I'm like, "Okay." I'm like, "I'll make it up there." So I'm running in. The guy was like, "Which line?" I was like, "Where is the VIP?" He was like, "Right here. Come on down." So you just got to be bold in what you want. And they said, "How did you catch up?" I said, "I told him I was VIP." So just be bold and walk in it, right? Just and I do that all the time, no matter where I'm at.
Mhm. Mhm.
Be bold. And I think it goes back to fear.
Mhm. Do it anyway, guys, and be bold. I think one thing I shared in my podcast, maybe I just dropped it a little bit, but you were saying that you realized you had fear, so you had to turn that fear into faith. So what I really do believe in doing is doing the opposite of what you feel, especially if what you're feeling is causing you to be stuck. Find the energy from somewhere. Ask God to give you the strength to do opposite of what you feel, so that you can come out of that rut, so that you can see something better on the other side of being stuck. Again, Kim Timms, thank you so much for
Thanks,
stopping
Bella.
and sharing with the navigators how you have navigated from a career of 19 years to doing something different. I love it. I love it. If you can, please let the listeners know how they can connect with you on social media.
Absolutely. So I'm on LinkedIn, probably more. I'm not really on Instagram, probably like I should be. But follow us at Bold Black Girls Podcast as well on Instagram. And then connect with me on LinkedIn. If you have any questions, I would love to be a resource. I'm also on Facebook, but I would say LinkedIn is probably the best. That's where I spend most of my time and I'm able to pivot.
All right. Thank you, Kim, again for sharing your time with us. And thank you, navigators, for listening. And until next time, navigators, keep going. Bye bye.
Thanks, Paula.